Hello, and welcome to the Breakaway Entrepreneur Podcast, where we explore the entrepreneur mindset and the characteristics and traits that lead to success. My guest today is Rennie Gabriel. Rennie has gone from selling bottles and cans to feed his family to becoming a multi-millionaire real estate investor. Rennie uses the profits from his business to support a charity called Shelter to Soldier that pairs up rescue dogs with soldiers returning from war with post-traumatic stress disorder. Rennie shares his advice on how to become wealthy and the importance of giving back. I hope you enjoy our chat. All right, Rennie Gabriel, how are you doing this afternoon?
I'm doing fabulous, thank you.
It is so awesome to have you on the podcast. I'm looking forward to our chat. So why don't we just start out by you telling us a little bit about you?
Well, I was born in this little town not too far from the California coast called Los Angeles. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have to go back to the beginning of time. We only have 45 minutes to an hour.
No, okay, fine. God, I wouldn't even have gotten to where I am in life at this point in 45 minutes. So the thing that's most important to me is what I'm doing versus what I do.
Okay.
What I'm doing is donating 100% of the profits from my supporting other people in how to handle money powerfully and become philanthropic. 100% of the profits go to a charity called Shelter to Soldier, and they rescue dogs from high-kill environments because dogs do have a special purpose in this life. And they train them as service animals for soldiers who've come back with post-traumatic stress disorder or traumatic brain injuries. And our returning soldiers are committing suicide at the rate of almost one an hour. And not one soldier who's gotten their service dog has committed suicide.
Awesome.
So this charity is saving 2 lives at a time, dogs that would have been euthanized and soldiers otherwise committed or could have committed suicide. So 100% of my profits go there, and that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm most proud of.
Awesome. So tell me, give us a little background on how you got started as an entrepreneur, the business that you built that led you to where you are today.
Well, I've been a serial entrepreneur most of my life. I taught for one season. I forget what you call them now as a school teacher. Semester, yes. Well, actually, it was 2 semesters. It was a full year. And after that, I started doing sales. I earned more money at that than I did in a week as I did as a whole month as a school teacher. And I wanted to do something that I thought would last a little bit longer than the kind of sales I was doing. So I went into financial services. Did that for about a quarter century. Started a pension administration company with a couple partners, sold that off to a public company. Had a book publishing company for quite a few years, did business coaching for financial planning and accounting firms. There's probably more stuff I did that I'm forgetting about. But what I realized is, as an entrepreneur, I had this up and down income. I might do well one month and not do my marketing, and then had income dips the next month. And that roller coaster drove me crazy. So what I started doing was investing in real estate. And I figured that would level out the income. And it did. When I had 2 divorces and one of those businesses, now I remember one of them I missed, was art galleries. That went bust. That took me down. By the time I was 50, after 2 divorces and that business failure, I was flat broke. And that's where I started over, doing what I coach other people to do. 5,000-year-old secret called pay yourself first. And rather than making a statement like what ordinary people do, like, I've heard that, I know that, I've done that, and I had done that a couple times before, this time I had to really get serious about it. And I saved up in 3 years $18,000.
Wow.
Yeah, I feel like, was it Mike Myers and Austin Powers? $1 million, no, $18,000. But my wife, my last final best wife, had a real estate partner who said, "Oh, we should buy this triplex." I can't do much with $18,000, but my wife chipped in 18, and the realtor said, "Okay, I'll chip in the other half." So we made this $72,000 down payment, and the three of us bought this triplex. And that's what started everything. And that's why I say wealth creation is a team sport, not a solo sport. So I managed the property. I borrowed more money to make down payments on what other apartment buildings. And that fits another attitude wealthy people have is debt. You use debt to create wealth.
Yeah.
And so in the next 6-7 years, we went from that original triplex to 50 units we owned and operated. And I went from flat broke at age 50 about 6-7 years later to a multi-millionaire.
Yeah.
So that was the real estate business. And when I severed an Achilles tendon about 6-7 years ago, I didn't have to work for a living, but I started going stir crazy. And that's when I started teaching other people how to become wealthy with the objective of them being philanthropic.
So going a little deeper into the creation of wealth, how people typically don't go there or don't pay themselves first. So how you kind of help people get into the mindset of becoming wealthy versus just making money. Like there's a mindset shift there. There's a way you live your life differently when you create wealth versus you just go make money.
Exactly.
So talk about that distinction.
It has to do a lot with the people that we seem to attract in our programs. They're generally coaches, they're entrepreneurs who are heart-centered, they may be healers, they're people who traditionally might be struggling financially. And one of the difficulties we have is that society doesn't value a financial education. Even worse, Hollywood, fairy tales, books by Charles Dickens, the scripture program us subconsciously to believe that only the poor people are the kind and noble.
Yeah. I grew up thinking that, right? I grew up that rich people were bad. I mean,
exactly. And Hollywood perpetuates this myth. I mean, if you look at movies like Titanic or It's a Wonderful Life or Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, or, I mean, I could go on and on and on.
Yeah.
I mean, even the TV program Game of Thrones, you had the Starks versus the Lannisters, where the noble people were poor and the wealthy people took advantage of the poor.
Yeah. Well, then we don't teach financial education in school.
No.
We don't teach people how to, I mean, we don't teach any of that. That's not the focus. The focus of an education is to go get a job.
Exactly.
Right? And they don't really teach that. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So being an entrepreneur, being a wealthy entrepreneur, we're different. Talk about your experience of how those people are different in the things that they do, the way that they think, the characteristics and traits that they have.
Absolutely. And I want to first impress the importance of the subtle messages we get that it's better to be poor. Mm-hmm. Because if people start examining fairy tales from that perspective, they'll understand how they were programmed not to be wealthy. And I really think that's the first step. I mean, look at the example of Jack and the Beanstalk. Here's a little kid who climbs up a beanstalk and finds a rich man. Mm-hmm. So what does he do? He steals the eggs that the golden goose the goose lays. He steals the goose that lays the golden eggs. And when the giant chases him down the beanstalk, he cuts it down and kills the giant. The moral of the story is it's okay to kill the rich if you're poor.
I never thought of it that way, but
that's the actual message. But the moral people are told is, well, Jack just took advantage of the opportunities presented. Baloney. He killed the rich to steal from him. Okay, so what I'm getting at is these are the underlying messages, and unless people wake up to that, they can't have that change in the mindset. So what's the wealthy mindset? I just wrote a book called Attitudes of the Wealthy, and I documented 32 attitudes that I came across. Okay, and one of them is that wealthy people ask questions instead of making statements. Like I talked about, pay yourself first. Okay, wealthy people do this. And the ordinary person might say, oh, I've heard of that, I know that, or whatever. Wealthy people instead, when they hear familiar information, ask questions like, gee, where would that apply to me? Or when will I start doing that? Or who could support me with that? Or what would that look like for me? I mean, the wealthy person asks questions when they hear familiar information, and that is really a crucial attitude. One of the ones that I had to get over was the idea that I had to do things by myself. Mm-hmm. I mean, I was a latchkey kid, so I didn't really have parents around really supporting anything that I thought about. I mean, you know, the kind of projects kids have in school where the parents help them and they get good grades. My parents had no interest in that. Okay. So up until my 40s, I believed I had to do it all by myself. And it wasn't until I understood that the power comes in asking for help that people are prepared to support you. And so I say constantly now, wealth creation is a team sport, not a solo sport.
And when I think about team, I think about people that we hire to do things. You're not necessarily talking about that because you just talked about asking for help. So is there a differentiation there? Is there a
completely.
distinction?
Absolutely.
And what do you recommend? A combination of the two?
Yeah, there are people you can hire like an accountant, like an attorney, you know, those are your team members and you pay them. But what I'm talking about is people who have aligned interests in growing a business together. And I looked back and found the successful businesses that I had, like the pension administration company, we sold to a public company. There were 3 of us that came together. The art gallery, where I operated it by myself, failed.
So how do we find those? So, okay, I'm in a business. I'm kind of a solopreneur, which a lot of people are.
Yep.
Is it joint venture part? Like, how do you find those resources to help make your team?
From the networking that you do, not isolating yourself.
How do you identify who they are, and then where do you find them? Let me just.
Oh, okay. The way you know who they might be, not necessarily who they are, depends on the area you're growing your business. If you're growing a technology company, you will be networking with people who are in the technology space. If you're going to be an angel investor or a venture capitalist, you will network with people in that industry. You know, I mean, venture capitalists network with other venture capitalists. Plumbers network with other plumbers. Online marketers network with other online marketers. A good example was Rich Gurman, who had the joint venture insiders community, and he had a partner when he started, grew that to $1 million business. They had a parting of the ways. It's irrelevant as to why. And the business did okay after the partner separated. I mean, he did well comparatively to most people, but then he connected with a fellow named Iman Agay, and now that partnership resulted in what literally was $1 million 3-day event, not $1 million a year business.
Right.
Okay. And how did they meet each other? Again, through the networking.
Yeah. So identify who they are and then go out and find them and let the universe help find them. I mean, I'm a big proponent of be open to it and the universe
and
provides.
It's the business. Yeah. It's the business that you're in. Like I said, if you're a plumber, you can grow a fabulous plumbing business by finding out who you want. Well, okay, let me go back a little bit to my angel investing days. What I discovered was that every successful business, I'm talking about multi-million or billion-dollar businesses, had two people involved, at least two. And one was labeled visionary, and the other was labeled execution master. Two different skills. Mm-hmm. You get two salespeople together, you get two visionaries together, you get two engineers together, you get two execution masters together. You are not going to create a successful business. And so the visionary, I'll give you examples. There's a company you've probably heard of called Berkshire Hathaway, mm-hmm. right? You know Warren Buffett. A lot of people don't know who Charlie Munger is. And Charlie Munger is half of Berkshire Hathaway. He's the execution master. Mm-hmm. That's the person in the background. When you had Apple Computer, you had Steve Jobs as a visionary and Steve Wozniak as the execution master.
Yeah.
In SpaceX, you've got Elon Musk as a visionary, and I can't think of her name, Glenwood or something like that, is the execution master. Or is that with Tesla? Anyway.
We get the point. It's the combination of the two, and you can't have two of the same because that's never going to get off the ground.
Exactly. But the two people with one with vision and the other who can execute will have a thriving business.
Yeah, that's a great
because
point.
Both of the major areas are taking place in terms of what is needed to have that business grow.
Yeah. So I'm sure along the way there have been some bumps and some ups and downs. Talk a little bit about some challenges that you've had as you've gone along, and more importantly, how you overcame them and how you worked through it to get better on the other side.
Well, one of the things, the real estate business, which is the last truly successful business that I'm in that supports me so I don't have to work for a living, while I recognized things were doing well with that first purchase when we remodeled it and I managed it and stuff like that. But what I also noticed was the future would look bright, but there were challenges on the day-to-day basis. We were buying older buildings that needed to be remodeled and revamped so we could increase the rents, which also meant money was going out as rents were being paid. I mean, we could have a plumbing bill and it would wipe out our profit for the month. But that didn't stop us. Yeah. Didn't stop us from moving forward and continuing to do what we were doing because we knew the rents would rise. We knew that at some point we could borrow back money from the increase in value of the buildings so that we could make down payments on more buildings. We knew the tax laws favored what we were doing because we could do a tax deferred exchange and not pay any profits on the capital gains and move it all into a larger building, which we did. Mm-hmm. But as we were getting started, I would say the first 3 years, there was so little profit. It was almost irrelevant.
So what kept you going?
Knowing that things were going to work out. Knowing it in my heart and seeing it in terms of the increase in the values of the building. Because one of the nice things I like about apartment buildings is, as opposed to rental houses, is the value of the building is a multiplication of the rents. If rents go up, the value of the building goes up. Pure and simple. Doesn't matter what color the building is. Doesn't matter if it's got nice carpeting. If rents go up, the value of the building goes up. And a house, well, if someone likes the color of the paint, terrific. If the economy is turning around, too bad. We went through 2008 problems where people were losing their shirts in real estate without a hiccup. I think the biggest issue was we might have gone 6 weeks before we were able to rent one vacancy. We had one vacancy. It took 6 weeks instead of 1 week.
Yeah.
That was the biggest hiccup. Because
so it's just the belief in knowing that it's going to work.
Exactly. We weren't over leveraged. We approached it intelligently.
And you had your team because you had your
Exactly.
visionary and your execution
Master.
expert.
Yes.
Right.
And a part of the team there were the painters. We used the same painter, we
Mhm.
used the same handyman, we used the same roofer, we used the same plumber, we used the same cleaning crew. And, so yeah, we paid them, but they were a very important part of our team.
Yeah, I mean, I did fix and flips, but I did single family residences, and I had the same. I mean, it took a while to get the right team, but once we got the right team, it's amazing because they'll be there with you every step of the way.
And when you said once we got there, so who else was on your team?
I had another person who I had met through an organization that I was involved in at the time,
Mm-hmm.
and
Okay.
I was the visionary, and she was kind of the executioner. Executioner, no,
Execution
execution
master. And
master.
that
Not
versus executioner.
Yeah, that didn't work. Actually, didn't work out so well long term. But anyway, that's a whole other story
Well,
of
yeah. I
of
mean, it was the
partners and
same.
learning how to partner up front and putting all the roles and responsibilities up front. And I mean, some work and some don't. We've all experienced that.
Exactly. And in our real estate partnership, it lasted probably 8 to 10 years before we decided we needed to separate ways as well.
Yeah, I mean, it happens. So your cash that you live on comes from your real estate investments. Got that?
That's correct.
Then you've got this other area that is your passion, which you give 100% of your proceeds to
Profits.
charity.
Profits, not proceeds.
I'm sorry. Okay, profits too.
Yep.
Tell me how that came to be. Like how did you how'd you get there?
Well, I realized that parents can't teach what they don't know. You've mentioned teachers don't teach this stuff. Well, they can't teach what they've never learned. And what I found out is CPAs, as a part of their training, do not learn how to do personal budgets or how to teach their clients how to do it. I'm certified as a financial planner, and it wasn't in my coursework either. And I realized 90% of the population doesn't have access to this information.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of pain when you don't handle money effectively and you grow broke. And in my case, at one time, I had to collect soda bottles and cans to get the refund money to buy food for my family. That's just not a way to live because you lack the education on how to handle money. Okay. So after I solved it for myself, it only felt proper, real, the right thing to do to teach it to other people.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I've been doing the last 6, 7 years.
And the wealth
Wealth on any income
on any income is your second book, correct?
is a second book out of the publishing company I created.
And then what's the first book? You want to talk about that a little bit?
Oh yeah, the first book was called Couples and Money. And where do we get the money attitudes we have? Not only from society and movies and stuff like that, but from our parents.
Yeah.
How our mom handled money, what her role was in the family regarding finances, or how our father handled money and what his role was in the family regarding finances. Couples divorce more often over money than any other issue.
I believe that.
And I mean, statistically, that's what's been documented. And so this book supports people in having safe conversations around money. And it doesn't matter if it's a husband and wife or people living together or same-sex couples, until you find out what your family taught you, it's difficult to have a safe conversation about money.
Yeah, it's fascinating to me as I've coached people not only on how to make money, but also to invest it for wealth. We have a relationship with money, and I didn't really think of it that way until when I started coaching on it. But we do. We all have a relationship with money, and we all have different relationships with money. So I just think that's a fascinating concept, and I love the fact that you're bringing that to people who we don't get taught this anywhere.
Yeah.
So what brought you to Shelter to Soldiers?
It's
What's it called?
sheltertosoldier.org.
Shelter to Soldiers.
Yeah,
What
it's soldier singular.
soldier?
Yeah.
Shelter to Soldier.
Yes.
What? How'd you find that particular? Obviously, you're a dog person, and you're
Yes. We
supporting
have
our.
rescue dogs, and my wife and I have had rescue dogs, and we're both, philanthropic in our hearts. And she actually was the chairperson of a charitable foundation as a part of Berkshire Hathaway. And someone brought this charity to her attention. They were like a couple, 3 years old at the time. And my wife knew one of my causes was veteran charities as well as animal charities that we both agree on. And she said, Rennie, I think you'd appreciate this charity. They're saving the lives of dogs and veterans. And as I checked it out and I started meeting with, the people involved, I just absolutely fell in love with it. If I don't get in touch with how I feel about it, I'm okay. But if I think about it, I have a problem talking. Anyway, so she brought it to my attention, and I said, I want to help. And as I started donating money to them, the more money I donated, the better I felt. To the point where my wife and I have donated probably close to $100,000 to this charity. And that means there are 6 people who are alive that might not otherwise be alive. There's 6 dogs that had a purpose in life, and they're fulfilling that purpose. So it was really giving more and more money to them that really, made me feel like I'm really doing something important.
Yeah, you
beyond
are.
just teaching other people how to handle money.
That's a beautiful, beautiful story. And obviously, it touches your heart. What if someone was thinking about becoming an entrepreneur? What's your best advice for them?
Well, obviously, they need to study what entrepreneurs do. They need to really determine what's going on. And that gets back to, it doesn't matter if it's creating a business, becoming an entrepreneur, becoming wealthy. It's a team sport, not a solo sport. And it doesn't matter if that team member is your coach, if it's your accountant, your attorney, it's your banker. It requires a team. And probably one of the best people on the team is a coach, like the kind of work that you're doing, because you're able to hold them accountable to what they want to do. You've got the resources that they may lack. And that's the first place to start, is making sure you have a partner and a coach.
Yeah. I started out as a W-2, and in 2005, I joined an organization of entrepreneurs. And without that community, I don't think I ever would have survived becoming an entrepreneur. It's surrounding yourself with like-minded people. It's having the team. It's having the accountability. But my advice would be to anyone who is thinking about starting a business is go find a whole bunch of entrepreneurs, and successful ones are better, to hang out with, because it just makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah, I'm so glad you suggested it the way you did, because a lot of people think that their family could support them being an entrepreneur. And it's likely they're a W-2 employee because their family members are W-2 employees. And that is not the place to go if you want to be an employer. And one of the successful real estate entrepreneurs I know, I've taken, I knew I was doing this before I met him, but he talks about how he talked to his dad about investing in his real estate, and his dad absolutely said it is the stupidest, most dumb thing to do. And that's where his dad was coming from.
I had the same dad, and my family, they're all W-2s, and they don't understand what I do, and they think I'm nuts, but that's okay with me.
Yeah. I was very blessed in that my mom had a sister who invested in apartment buildings, and she thought that made a lot of sense. So my mom worked as a clerk in a bakery and scrimped and saved and bought a rental property. And she ended up actually at times loaning money to her sister-in-law to help when they were having shortfalls. So it was kind of a mixed bag about investing in real estate. But my mom actually said to me, if you buy rental real estate, the tenants will buy the property for you.
That's brilliant. That's exactly right, and that's a great way to put it. Great way to put it.
Yeah, she told me that when I was 8 years of age, and I didn't actually get to really put it into practice till I was 50. But that message stayed with me.
Yeah.
All the way through.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with. Well, I will say you can't go wrong with real estate long term.
Right.
Because we've all experienced. Yeah. I mean, I would say 80% of my retirement money is in some form of real estate. So yeah. I mean, it's kind of what we do. Is there anything that you can think about that if you went back you would do differently?
Yes, because the first time I started paying myself first, I was in my 30s after reading the book The Richest Man in Babylon. And then when I had a tax bill of $3,000 and I was only earning $3,000 a month, 10 months I had $3,000, that tax bill took away everything I'd saved over the last 10 months. Had I not attempted to be doing things by myself and I was letting other people in on my life, someone could have said to me, yeah, Rennie, yes, you lost the $3,000 to the IRS that you've been saving for 10 months, but if you hadn't been saving it, you would have had to borrow it and pay interest on it. Don't stop paying yourself first.
Yeah.
Which is what I had done.
Yeah.
For another 8 to 10 years before I read the book again and started again.
Yeah. I love that because it's really important to have that wealth account and start. And I don't care how little you're making in your business, you can always carve off some to invest in yourself, as you say, to develop that wealth account.
Yeah, that mindset I call treat yourself like you deserve to own some of the money you're working for.
Yeah, yeah. And like I said, you can always carve something out.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
Find a way to put that.
Doesn't matter if it's 1%, 2%, 3%, 10%.
That's right.
Doesn't make any difference where you start. Same thing as running a marathon. You don't start to run marathons by running 26 miles.
That's right.
You have to build up to it.
Absolutely. That's great. So what do you want your legacy to be, Rennie?
What I want my legacy to be is that anyone who came into my circle became philanthropic and helped cure the planet.
Well, that's pretty good. I like that. I really like that.
Thank you.
All right. So how can people learn more about what you do, about your charity? How can they get your book? I believe the book is getting ready to be published, or has it just been published?
I just have some galley proofs of the book, Attitudes of the Wealthy. I just got the ISBN number this week from someone we know. Well, Susie Pruden said, wait a second, you had a book publishing company. You could still get those ISBN numbers. Just got it a couple days ago.
Okay, good. So when do you think it's going to be out?
Probably in a couple months. But you know what? I'm willing to provide galley proofs of the book. And if someone actually goes to, I've got a bunch of free business building tools.
All right. So give me the links and I'll put them in the show notes so that people can get access to them.
It's wealthonanyincome.com/TEDx.
Okay. All right. But I will definitely put the link down there and make sure that people have access to that.
Yeah. So they can get a bunch of business building tools for free. They'll see my TEDx talk, and they can get a summary of my award-winning best-selling book called Wealth on Any Income. And they'll get an email from me. They'll have all my contact info.
And all the all the profits from
Yes.
all
Yeah.
that you do goes to Shelter to Soldier,
That's correct.
which we love. All right, perfect. Any last words that you might have for us, Rennie?
Yeah, it's never too late to start on the road to wealth, and it doesn't matter how old you are. I was 50, and I'm sending out an email to my list about people who were 60, 70, and almost 80 who are getting started on the road.
Yeah, never too late to start. I love that. Rennie, thanks so much for spending some time with me this afternoon. It's been great to reconnect with you.
Well, thank you, Janet. I'm so glad we reconnected.
Yeah, me too. All right, you enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
You too.
Thank you for listening to The Breakaway Entrepreneur with Janet Fish. If you liked our show and want more, check us out at www.breakawayentrepreneur.com. If you have any questions, please email me at coach@breakawaybusinesscoaching.com. I'll answer your questions in an upcoming podcast. Subscribe to make sure you get our next episode as soon as it's available. Have a great day.